Yeah. Welcome to Pass the Outlet. I am your host, Chris Patrick. Along with me, my wingman, Michael Benjamin. And we are launching this new podcast for you today. Mike, tell them what it's all about.
What's up, Chris? Hey, I'm super excited to get this one started. We've been talking about Pass the Outlet for a while. Um, really just want to dive into basketball, what we've been through, you know, our lifestyle, which is surrounded by it and whatnot. But I'm super excited to get this one off the ground. But Chris, to start, I'm getting feedback, man.
Okay, let me, it's because I'm sharing my screen still. Let me stop that. And that should solve all that problems. Apologies to anyone on the other end who might have also been experiencing that. Just when we think we're out of the weeds with making these amateur mistakes, here we are. But at least we're almost on time. We're only a couple minutes late. But getting back on track, exactly like what Mike said. There's a popular saying in the basketball community: "Ball is life." I think Mike and I both know that, and we'll talk moving forward. And it's just a lot of things. We said it's a lifestyle. We played of the game at many levels, and I'm excited to talk about it. Mike presented me with this idea, and I just loved it, and we've just ran with it and finally getting it off the ground. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to talk about. Obviously, Valley Sports Plug is a Valley brand for Arizona. We're still going to talk about anything Suns, Mercury, what's going on with the Pac-12 with the Sun Devils and the Wildcats. But we want to dive into different things like youth sports and coaching, the open runs, playing as older adults, I guess you can say. Different experiences that we've had with the Suns, especially myself as a former employee with them. There's just so much to talk about, and I'm super excited to bring on some of our friends and colleagues that have similar, experiences and share those with everybody who really loves ball. So I'm ready to go, Chris.
Let's do it. Yeah, and just to expand on this and basically done. All these perspective ideas to kind of see where this goes and see how much there's just so much basketball to talk about. See who we can get on, get their perspective, because we all see something and have some ideas lined up already. We're gonna look at some plays, maybe look at some posts, and all levels. We're talking from the youth sports level all the way to the we're going to try and cover it all. So thank you for joining us, or if you're listening back on the podcast or on YouTube. But yeah, let's do it. First, in this first maiden voyage episode, we do kind of want to just introduce ourselves and kind of what our journey in basketball has been, what our experience and perspective is, and kind of let it all out. When we were talking about this for doing show prepping yesterday, it was crazy kind of starting to actually put it on paper and see like, wow, this is when you really think about all the aspects, like I was saying, your fandom when you were playing as a kid and now as an adult at the high school level, and also coaching when we did youth sports for that time period. And I'd love to get back into youth sports. Definitely, we'll talk about that. But Mike, we were undecided even going into the show, but I think we should start with your journey today. And you have a lot on your resume that I'm excited. I know a lot about, and I'm excited to dive in and share with everyone. So let's go back. Let's go way back to a young Michael Benjamin when he was just a little baby. Was basketball the first sport you ever played, or was there something else?
No, it was not. Like most kids, soccer was my first ever experience for organized sports. I definitely wasn't the best. One of my first memories that I have from playing soccer was probably around 6 or 7 years old, and our team probably lost 15-2. And I had a buddy on the team with me who we were just trying to kick it from the center over and try and go, and then we just continuously get it stolen from us. And that was kind of my eye-opening moment where I said, you know what, maybe this isn't the sport for me. And I remember as a young kid, like most, young active children, being on the playgrounds in elementary school, playing basketball on those really short, like 8-foot hoops, just trying to do crazy in between the legs layups and really deep shots, and started to grow a love from that. And then I probably played in my first league ever when I was around 9 or 10 years old. And immediately I fell in love with the game. The team aspect, really focusing on skills. And I'll never forget the first basket that I made, which was probably about a 12-foot jumper. And I don't think I went crazy and jumped around too much, but I definitely remember the feeling inside about how excited I was about finally making a basket after playing for a while. But it definitely was a quick, feeling of something that I knew was going to be a part of my life for a very long time.
Yeah, I think when we start diving into my story, there's a lot of those early similar parallels. I'm not going to spoil too much, but a lot of kids, and me included, started in that youth soccer. It's great for the young kids to get out there, get their feet wet in a team sport. But then, yeah, it's once you get a taste of basketball, it's easy to fall in love. So once you fell in love and kind of were all in on it, what was your, like, who did you look up to the most at a young, who do you remember at, I'm gonna rewind it a bit. When you were young, as early as you can remember, who was the first person you looked up to as a basketball player or basketball influence?
Well, I grew up in the Valley, so the Phoenix Suns were always on in my household. My dad had season tickets with a good buddy of him, and they've still had season tickets for, my goodness, going back to the Coliseum days. So we're getting close to 35 plus years. And now I've transitioned to taking over those tickets with my dad. So I definitely have early remembrances of being a very big fan of Dan Marley and Kevin Johnson, guys who had really vested interest in the Valley, like Tom Chambers. But I think my number one main person who I looked up to, because I met him at an early age, was Connie Hawkins. He was one of the first players from, I believe, the ABA to transition to the NBA when they did their merger back in the 70s. And he was a crazy athlete, could do many things on both sides of the ball. But I think the one thing that really took it over for me was how incredible of a person he was. He was always at Suns events. He was always willing to sign autographs, take pictures, and have a conversation, even with a little kid like myself who didn't get to see him play live. But as I started getting older, I started investing a little bit more time in watching him. Now, there's plenty of other people as I was growing up that had influence over me, and I'm sure we'll talk about it coming up here soon. But Connie Hawkins was the guy for me at an early age, and it's the reason why my favorite number is 42.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and if anyone saw in that trailer, or if you could call it that, or reel Mike made, freaking awesome. I loved it. You can see he's wearing, I think, I'm almost positive at the finals game, you're wearing your Connie Hawkins shirt, right? With the 42.
Absolutely.
You were on.
If I had a jersey of him, I'd probably wear it to every Suns game. But
I don't doubt that.
He was just an incredible individual. So anytime I can rep it out there and put it and wear that shirt, I'm always for it. They had he's in the Ring of Honor for the Suns, and they've had a couple of kind of celebration nights about him where they've given out bobbleheads. And that was one of those nights where they gave out those bobbleheads and had kind of special commemorative shirts that you could buy. So it was a no-brainer for me.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Mike, can you, if you're comfortable, are you comfortable telling everyone how tall you are?
Yeah, I'm 6'7". So I'd say
Nice.
I'm on the taller side than most.
Most would say that, yes. It's funny because I'm like basically 6 foot, almost 6'1" in the right pair of shoes, but I don't consider myself too tall because on the basketball court, I'm still a small guy. I'm a guard, but out in public in the general population, people will tell me I'm tall, but I'm like, no, like Mike is tall. And like, I guess maybe some people would, I don't know what the range of tall is, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, my point in asking you that and sharing that is that you weren't always 6'7", especially when you first started your basketball journey, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So what was No. What was your game like when you first started out playing basketball, and like about how tall were you compared to other kids your same age?
I definitely went through a range of sizes. I'm thinking back on it the other day when I started playing in middle school. I was primarily kind of a corner specialist shooter, so I would play small forward, two power forward, not as much. I normally stuck to the outside in the corner. My ball handling skills were not where they moved to be, and that was because when you join a school team, your coach starts to build you into a certain spot, right? So I was a pretty decent shooter at that young age, and corner threes were necessary to space the floor. So that's where I started. And then when I went to high school and I played my sophomore year on JV, I was one of the shortest kids on the team. Now, at the time, I was probably 5'9", maybe 5'10", but it forced me into playing at the point guard position. So when we would have practice and all of our drills, I was always running with the guards and the point guards, and it forced me to work on my ball handling and make it a priority in my game. Now, between my sophomore and junior year, I had a growth spurt, and I came back the next year and I was 6'4". But that entire summer and all the work that I had been doing, I was able to transition the guard game into being a little bit bigger. And at that time, when you're younger, you're not as big. I was a little bit more lanky, especially because I had stretched. But it started to give me really a boost of confidence knowing that I had those ball handling skills to go with the size that I was growing into. So when I'd play at school and go in runs, it was a different style to see a little bit bigger of a guy who probably should at the high school time. There's not that many guys, especially when I was growing up. Our center was always around 6'6". So I probably could have been playing power forward center position, but I had transitioned to those, transition to a bigger body with a guard skill. Now, as I got older and continued to grow in the game, playing 4 or 5 times a week, really, really focusing on attacking the basket, pull up off the dribble, still within my guard work, and with the speed I had because I was smaller. It all stopped in 2015 when I almost broke my ankle. I went up for a blocked shot and came down on top of another player's foot and tore some ligaments. Pretty small, but it definitely was the first time I ever had any kind of injury to that extent. And it took a very long time for me to come back. And
I'm sorry, when was that?
I was around 2015, 2016, I believe.
Okay.
So
yeah. Okay. So you're older. You're out of school.
I'm older. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
This is still, I love the game so much. I'm going to play, and I want to play until my body doesn't let me anymore.
Of course.
But at that time, after that injury, I, wasn't able to really work out as much as I used to. I couldn't play consistently. So I put on weight, and I had finished kind of growing probably right around 22, 23. And being 6'7" and now a bigger body made me change my game to start focusing more on the inside game. So, and I'm sure Chris can attest, I still have spurts where you can see me handling the ball, but I don't have the speed that I used to. So I started to transition into playing inside, and it's definitely become a passion of mine recently because playing the big man's game, not only does it come with finesse, but it also comes with strength. I love to bully people down low, even though Mike Howard would probably say I'm too nice sometimes. But it's been it's been a really exciting ride in my basketball journey to see where I've come and the ebbs and flows within my game, but overall how it's transitioned into the player that I am today.
Yeah. And I've seen that even I came in about halfway through that journey. And since the time I've known you, I think we're going on 10 years now, right about that. Maybe a little over actually, but basically, yeah, we kicked it. Me and Mike hit it off right away. We have the same music taste. sports taste, just life outlook, just every level we connect. And it was easy. So that translates, as you know, hoopers know, like that off the court energy translates on the court as well. And he's never shy to share how he's feeling, or if I make a mistake. We were out there Sunday runs. I thought he had plenty of space to fill the lane, and I was kind of hasty with a pass inside, and he kind of was like, Chris, what the F are you doing? And he's not afraid to say that, and I'm not afraid to tell him how I'm feeling. But at the end of the day, he's still my boy, and it helps us both get better. But getting back to my point, I've seen that growth in you, Mike, and it's been awesome because you do still have that guard skill set, and you have a good handle, and and that comes also with your good length, that you've been able to keep that good handle. It frustrates a lot of guards that try to step up on you because they can't poke it out like they can with a guy closer to their size. But what I wanted to ask you is, do you feel like, or I guess maybe I know I kind of know the answer to this question, but what kind of disrespect do you get, or do you feel like you get disrespect out there in pickup or any type of run you do now as an adult, where people want to paint you in a box as a big guy and don't respect you so much on the outside?
It definitely takes some time as being a bigger bodied guy and one of the taller guys on the floor wherever you go for runs, especially if it's your first time and you've never played with people, right? You see somebody who might be of smaller stature, automatically you think, okay, they can probably handle the ball. They're a little bit faster. They're going to be a guard type, which can be changed. I mean, you know, we play with a guy, his name is James, who probably one of the strongest guys that I've ever went up against in the paint. And he's maybe 5'8", if that, 5'9".
And he's never shy to step out, and he's the first one to say, Mike, I'm guarding Mike. And I kind of have that same mentality. I mean, I'm taller than James, but I don't even like when James guards me. But no, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it takes time, takes a couple of games, especially with you're playing with new people, and that's part of basketball, and that's why I love it too. Everybody has a different type of skill set, and it's all on you to assert yourself and show what you can do on the floor. So when people think that, okay, he's the biggest guy out here, he's primarily only going to be down low, I make it part of my game because it is now. And I know that I can be very successful playing down low, but it's not going to stop me from, you know, pulling out into my outside game and working all the different aspects of my game onto the floor to show them what I'm made of. So it's definitely, it's always a growing period whenever you're playing with new people. But that's why I love, you know, our runs that we do on Sundays now. We have a core group of guys who have been playing together for, oh my goodness, maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years now. But everybody has played with each other. So there's an unselfish nature out there. Everybody pretty much trusts each other. And it's just some of the best basketball that you can play because everybody works together to become better and have a good time at the end of the day. That's what I'm out there for, right? Not only to get a good workout in, but to continue to get better as I can.
Absolutely. And I'm 100% with you. It's a great group of guys out there. The runs are always good, and it can get a little chippy, but at the end of the day, it's all guys out there just trying to get better, trying to have a good time, let off a little steam. And I'm really grateful that I got in on this and you invited me to join in. And we even created pretty much started our adult league team that we did the last season from guys out there. But kind of moving on to dive in more about you, Mike. I think you had mentioned it early on. You were a ball boy for the Suns?
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty cool. How'd you stumble upon that?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have kind of a dedicated podcast where I can tell plenty of stories. So I don't want to give up all the tidbits of information that I had.
Sure.
But my dad was a season ticket holder, has loved the Suns forever. And I think one time he just stumbled upon on Suns.com that they were having interviews for ball boy positions. It was something that I never thought about as a kid. Obviously, if you're at the Suns games, you see those guys who will go out there with the towels or the big mop after free throws. But it's such a secondary thing. It was not ever on my radar. And my dad said, hey, they have these ball boy positions. We went to a lot of games at that time anyways, so I was always going to be down there. And he said, "Do you want to go and try?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Absolutely." So I went, interviewed, and it was right in that entrance pavilion of the Sun Stadium. Now it's like the big kind of club area right when you get in.
Mhm.
But probably, I don't know, 80 to 90 other kids that were in there interviewing, and I got the position. And I was thinking that it was like a volunteer gig. I thought I was just going to be out there rebounding for the Suns
Like, I'll do this
players
for free.
for
Why not?
free. Absolutely. Are you kidding me? What kind
Yeah.
that's an experience that you really can't pass up, to be on the floor with professionals in the NBA.
Mhm.
So when they told me that I was going to get paid, it was even more of a cherry on top.
Better. Yeah.
Now, this was back in my first season that I worked was 2004, 2005. And minimum wage was what we got. And back in the day, minimum wage was like, I think $5, $5.50 an hour.
Oof. Yeah, sounds about right.
But I'm a kid. I was 14 years old. It was my first job ever. And I don't think you could write a better story than your first job to be a ball boy for the Phoenix Suns. And to put it on top of that, the cherry on top, it was the first year when Steve Nash came back to the Valley after he had left Dallas and got his big contract with us. And we had some exciting young core players like Amari Stoudemire, Sean Marion, Joe Johnson, who we had got from the Boston Celtics. And we also brought in Quentin Richardson. And that year we won 62 games, which at the time tied the franchise record. So every time I went to work, we won. And it was like,
Right.
it was one of the best times you could ever have, because I was seeing championship level basketball at such a young age. Now, I think we had some other questions in regards to like one of my favorite memories and whatnot, but I'd like to dive into that right now.
Go for it.
There's so many things that I saw on that floor, from conversations with guys like Josh Smith, rebounding for LeBron James, really having a good conversation with the guy Luke Ridnour, who was a guard for the Seattle Supersonics. But my all-time favorite memory that I'll cherish to the day I die, because it helped create the player that I am today, was watching Tracy McGrady play while being on the floor. And I can't tell you how much I learned that one game watching him. Now, back in the day, he played with Houston, so they would come twice a year, and I always tried to make sure that I'd be on the floor when he was there, because his footwork was unmatched. The way that he was a tactician on the floor, creating space, coming off screens, and really being a very, very smart offensive player, made me want to be more of a student of the game. Because I understood that, yeah, skill is involved, but at the same time, being smart and being a surgeon on the floor can make you the best that you want to be. And in Tracy McGrady's case, a Hall of Famer. So I'll never forget that. And I definitely have plenty of other stories. There's the infamous Raja Bell story.
Oh, man.
There's
That's what I'm excited to do. And with this whole thing is like, I know we could do it all today, but we have to do everything, cover it more broadly. So
I'm sure we'll have a
dissect those
podcast.
stories.
We'll have a podcast where we can just really deep dive into my ball boy days. But, great memories. And, I still have some friends nowadays who are ball boys. So it's really cool to see the torch being passed, I guess you could say. And hopefully we can get some of those guys on too, to talk about then and now and the differences that you see in the ball boy game. Because I won't lie, what they do now, they're just on the floor the whole time. I had to put out flyers through the entire arena.
So you're saying they have it easier now?
I had to blow up those freaking stupid ass bangers that people would have behind the free throws. We had to go and physically blow them up and then pass them out to people. So there's just a lot of different things back in the day. And they've definitely tightened up game operations over there as the years have gone on.
Right,
But
the procedural stuff will change over time. I love that story about T-Mac. That's another guy when I start talking about myself is a guy that I really looked up to as a young player, and that's that. So piggybacking off of that, I should say, with seeing T-Mac, and you were saying kind of, I think you were kind of saying that he showing seeing how he works harder and how he plays the game and approaches the game. Was that the moment, or what? When did you realize that there are so many different levels to basketball? As to Sorry for swearing for anyone out there, but there are levels to this shit. When did you realize that with basketball?
that definitely was an eye-opening moment because I didn't watch basketball that way. I just kind of watched it from, hey, okay, who's shooting threes or who's playing big? And at that time, it was still an inside out game, but the Suns of 2004 started to change the way that we play nowadays, especially in the NBA with their 7 seconds or less and their extending of the floor and shooting threes at a very high clip. But to finally fine tune the way that I watch in regards to not just, okay, is he open, shoot the ball, but how does he get open? How does he create for his other teammates? Is he a selfish player? Is he somebody who shows his leadership on the floor, communicating with people and getting him into the right positions? That was probably the big eye-opening experience for me, because I had started to grow as well. So I was starting to see that within my own game, where when I was a young player, I was very timid. I wasn't the tallest guy. I didn't trust in my game. And it took me years and years to really get the confidence in myself that I needed, that I started to see in these professionals. And it's crazy to think that just watching, people at their craft who perform at the highest level can really make an impact and change the way that you work. And that was definitely that time for me. And it also helped that Steve Nash was going into an MVP year,
Of course.
one of the best point guard in the league. Going into, that stretch, he had back-to-back MVPs. The Suns made pushes in the playoffs. So I was just around great basketball at all times. And to be on the floor was even more of an exciting experience for me, not just because I was around these world-renowned athletes, but I was able to see the craft that I was starting to really, really love at the highest level.
I bet that's every young hooper's dream, is to be courtside at the ball boy, because we were all at one point in our driveway shooting around, envisioning ourselves being the starting whatever for the Phoenix Suns. And I mean, at least that's how it was for me. But also within that, like I was saying, any boy wants to have that perspective, be on the court, be in that position. Like we were saying, the levels and all of this within basketball, to kind of maybe do a hard transition. Do you like the college game or follow the college game?
Uh, to be honest with you, Chris, I don't really follow the college game as much.
Mm-mm.
And it's probably a detriment to myself. I'm just more of a fan of the way that the NBA spacing is. And it gives the best athletes abilities to create and really showcase, their skills at a different, at a different level than can happen in the college game. I absolutely have respect for the college game. I think the college game is more team oriented. It's a lot more structured. There's a lot more sets with movement. And it's just a tighter game. The one thing that sometimes I struggle with is the inconsistency of the players, because they're all young, right? They're all 18 to, there's some guys who might be fifth-year seniors who redshirt, so they might be 23, 24. But that's far and few between, especially nowadays with the way that guys are one and done. The best players
Right.
are just coming and going. And now we're starting to see the transition of guys going overseas instead of going to college to get their 1 year of eligibility out and then come back for the NBA draft. So I could tell you, I'll always watch March Madness when it comes around, but it's very frustrating and it's very tough sometimes because it just seems like it's brick city out there. And I know you can attest to that. I think we were
Oh
talking
yeah,
about it, this past March
this
Madness
last
when we
one
were
was
watching some of the
rough.
games. And it's still exciting, right? Games go down to the wire. There's, really, really tight matchups when it comes down to that. But I'd say that's probably the only time I'm really paying attention. And it's going to be tough now, too, with what's going on here in Arizona and on the West Coast with the Pac 12 and the dissolving of some teams. I don't know where others are going, if the conference is eventually going to be split. So it's going to be tough sledding for the college game, especially those teams that are still in the Pac 12 trying to gain their footing on a national level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. And I actually, I don't know if he's watching, but Ben Miller reached out and we were chatting the other day, and he has so much knowledge on the college scene, basketball and football mostly, but ASU in particular. He's a graduate of there, lived on campus, lived near campus his entire time there, and just has a real good and still keeps up with it. And so I'm gonna schedule a time when we can talk to him. It might be over on the Heat Check podcast, just so we can talk football too. But just quick plug right here, about 30 minutes in. Guys, hit those social medias. They're in the description below. Mike has them ready to go because my brain doesn't work like that. I guess I don't have the socials ready to go. But we're gonna be having guests on. We're gonna have them on this podcast, Past the Outlet. We're gonna have them on the Heat Check podcast live, probably, because it's hard, because that's when we can really do people from all over the country all over the country. I don't think we're going to go international just yet, but really, really excited for what we got going on here. And I don't think we're trying to bite off more than we can chew. We tried to launch the Valley Sports Plug back in 2019, and really I think we bit off a lot more than we could chew, and then we were ready but we're back, we're recharged. We got the Heat Check podcast once a month. We're about to get that recording out here in the next couple weeks. We're going to be doing the Heat Check podcast live, probably once a week, every other week at the very least. And once a month, probably see a round table from us where we have all the guys that you loved, Delmo Sons, Matt, Ian, anyone who wants to come on and kind of hash it all out with us. And we're going to talk everything Valley Sports. But right here on Past the Outlet, we're talking about basketball. And in particular, we're breaking down Michael Benjamin's journey in basketball. So far, we kind of started out with his kind of broad overview journey from youth sports through the high school level, and now on as an adult, playing and staying with it. We've both off the record, or if you will, expressed an interest to play for as long as our bodies will physically allow us to. And I think actually Mike even said that probably 15-20 minutes ago. But within that, Mike, I wanted to dive a little bit into a different aspect of your basketball journey, and that is when did you start coaching, and how did that come to be?
Yeah, so before what I'm doing now, I used to work for the YMCA as a sports director. When I came back from college, I did work there part-time, basically reffing rec games. And at the time, I did basketball, volleyball, flag football, soccer, t-ball, you name it, just because I love sports and it was something that I wanted to be involved in. And after years of different type of work and, where life took me, I guess, I found myself back at the Y in late 2016. And I was approached by Garrett, who is one of the executive directors. I think he might be a vice president now with the YMCA, about possibly taking on a role at the Chandler Gilbert YMCA as a sports director. And it was something that at the time I just couldn't pass up. My love for sports and helping kids was right at the top of my list. So it was an easy decision. And right when I stepped in, I knew that I was ready to coach and be more of a leader for the youth in the community than I ever really had been, because it took some years of growth on my own, right? we all have our own journeys. Some take longer than others, but at that time I knew that I was ready to give back, and coaching was a perfect aspect to do that. So I remember putting teams together as a sports director. When you're putting the leagues together, especially for the Y, all of your coaches are volunteers. So I had reached out to parents, family members, friends, whatnot, filled all these teams. And as we got down to the end of putting everything together, there was one team left, a high school basketball team of free agents that needed a coach. And I looked at Chris and I said, Chris, are you ready to do this with me? And he said, I think so. We'll
Maybe.
figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go along. But immediately fell in love with it. It's so gratifying to be able to spread your own knowledge to others, especially those who are invested and want to listen. Kids are tough at any age, especially at that high school level. They have a lot of other things on their mind. Basketball, especially at the Y, is probably the last thing that they really care about. Yeah, they're there because they want to do it and have fun and they like basketball, but there's probably, they're not as invested as you and I would be in regards to the game. And it takes time to really get that love. But it was really a quick fall. I fell in love with it immediately. That first season, I don't think we were the greatest, but we made a run in the playoffs and ended up playing in the Valley-wide championship games, which at the time were on the Phoenix Suns basketball court, because the YMCA has a partnership with the Suns and they have the Junior Suns. And that was kind of, one of the special things that can happen with a competitive league, where you go through evaluation games, have a regular season, and then a single elimination tournament. And then if you win that tournament, you get to play in the Valley-wide championship game against the winner of the West Side teams, because we coached out here in the East Valley. And we made a push. We really fought hard in that game. Our boy Brooke had an opportunity at the last second, missed the floater, but I knew at that point I was in. I had caught the itch, and it's been something that I've been very passionate about over the past few years, even as I've left the Y as a sports director. I still do help out in capacities. I go and ref the super little kid games, like the preschoolers and the up to 5th and 6th grade. I still help out with. And finally, after getting some footing within my new job and my work that I do now, I've finally been able to get back out there and coach again. And I feel back at home. I feel like something is really finally, I was missing a piece of that after COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and our season was cut short. Well, I guess it didn't even start, and Chris, you experienced pretty much all of this with me for the first couple of years of us
Right.
coaching, and the plenty of conversations that we had about strategy, about where to put certain kids, how to, get the best out of them, and how to really reach them and make sure that they're invested.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely one of the more gratifying parts about that as well, because not every person is the same. Everybody has different type of personalities. And especially for kids, they're growing and trying to figure out what kind of person they are now and who they want to be. So you have to talk to people different ways. You can't coach everyone the same way in order to be successful. And it's something that, as coaches, and I'm sure plenty of other people who have coached before can attest to, I wouldn't say it's a constant struggle, but it's something that you're continuously working on. And it's why I love it so much.
Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, I think it was a unique challenge for us too, because often with especially teams like that at that age, high school and 7th and 8th grade, they're a group of buddies that played together, or it's a team that's been playing together for a while, versus like Mike said, No, not to diss on them too bad or to knock them. I love them, but they were kind of a ragtag group of agents, just a bunch of kids who individually went down to the YMCA and said, "I want to play basketball. I need a team." And so we were the ragtag free agent team. And to make it that, I agree. Like I had that same feeling. Like we made it down, had that disappointing loss in the finals, but to make it down there and just have that run, feel that excitement from the other perspective. I have so many questions that could stem from this, and don't want to get caught up in it too much because I'm sure we'll talk about it later on down the line. But how has coaching changed your perspective on how you approach the game as a player and just how you look at it overall as like a broad perspective?
As far as a player goes, I'd say it definitely made me more of a vocal leader. When you're coaching from the sidelines, the only way that you can make any kind of impact on the game is by talking to your players through the game, calling timeouts, telling them about what you're seeing on the floor. But as you become a player, it really helped me transition to, helping guys, putting them into the correct position, not second guessing myself on the floor when maybe I saw something right then. I knew the way that I see it, and I'm not afraid to tell a teammate who might be reeling a little bit where they should go, on different aspects, spacing the floor, defensives, how to attack a certain player and whatnot. So that has definitely helped me over the past couple of years since I was coaching. It's a different animal, definitely. And it makes you see things at a wider aspect, right? Sometimes coaching is tough because you think to yourself, wow, I saw this. How did this kid not see this as well? But it helps when you still play because you're on the floor and you can understand how there's limitations to not only where you can see, but what you can feel when the game action is going on, and how you space the floor and have guys cutting behind you that you didn't even know, without communication from other teammates and whatnot. So it's
Mhm.
definitely helped me transition into being a better teammate, I would say.
I could see that 100%. And just to expand on exactly what you were just saying, I think just to set it up, most people who coach basketball, or I would hope almost all people who coach basketball, played at some point in time, especially anyone who's going to be successful. So they know the player perspective already and have most likely been coached before. So of course, a coach knows that we don't see the player's perspective, and we understand they see things we don't, and they're going to get frustrated if we see something from our perspective that looks one way and we pull them for it, but they feel it's this or that. So like you said, navigating that and kind of, I think I agree, understanding like it does definitely change how you see it and approach it all. um and with that, of course, you kind of get to see firsthand what the kind of trend is with basketball, because I feel like, especially with as young as the sport is, it's been evolving, especially in the last 20, 30 years. And within that, I want to ask you, from the time you were playing as a kid to playing now as an adult and coaching these kids, how have you seen the game evolve from a team perspective?
It's changed a lot, but it's changed the way that the NBA game has changed, right? Professional basketball has always been about putting on a show, being seeing the best athletes out there, and seeing guys do things that you never thought could be done. But it's changed since, even as close as the 90s. It's changed from then till now, where primarily the game was around the big man dumping the ball down in and then running action off of them and having them be your primary, scorer, to now teams shoot 60 plus three-pointers a game without batting an eye, because that's the best percentage to score the most points, is to shoot three-pointers. And it's trickled down into youth sports, right? The flashy dribble in and outs, making guys fall down, pull back 30 footers, has infiltrated basketball culture, which is understandable because it's what is in front of us. But with that being said, it has kind of cut back a little bit on the team aspect and the way that each player, if you really work within a great system, does something great and can complement each other where other guys might not be the best at one skill set and whatnot. And it's hard to get some of these kids to invest in that, you know, especially at a younger age. If a kid is already 6'3" and he's 12 years old, I want to start building a foundation for a big man game. Well, does that kid really want to do it because he sees Steph Curry pulling up 2 feet after he crosses the 3-point line, or he sees craziness on 2K and whatnot? So that's always been kind of a struggle where we found ourselves in, is everybody wants to be the ball handler. Everybody wants to be the guy, and everybody wants to be the superstar, where it's just not the case when it comes down to the team game. You have to have guys really fill into their role, accept their role, and work to be better at their role.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough in youth sports because, like I said, everybody wants to be the guy to show off to their friends. So it really takes time, it takes effort. And what we saw is it takes years. It takes years of working with a group to really find your niche, find your core guys, and start building them into their successful patterns, which is one of the reasons our last season that we had, you know, when we started at Chandler in 2017, middle of 2017, and went over to when I transitioned from Chandler to Tempe, and we took a couple of those core guys over with us and then built our team going into their senior year. And we really had a group. I remember looking at you, Chris, after our first practice and saying, wow, did it take time? But this is what we were always hoping for, right? And then COVID struck and it killed that season. And all of those kids graduated and couldn't play any longer, which was just a dagger in our heart, because then we had to come back and restart again. But, you know, that's also the beauty of it, right? Is to really get those kids invested and buy in to a system and fill their role.
Yeah. And that's the hardest thing, like, to get them to buy into that. I wanted to expand on what you were saying earlier. Of course, I think there's always been some level of media, and especially, like you said, the NBA game has a heavy influence on how the game progresses and how people play the game, because you watch, even back in the 80s and 90s, everyone wanted to be like Mike. You watch him play and everyone wanted to do Mike's moves. And that obviously had a strong influence on a lot of players that played in the 90s and early 2000s. And then Kobe basically became a clone of Michael. And the next generation is just going to keep doing it better than the last. And that's to be expected. And that's one thing that I do love about basketball, especially, is because you have these rules that haven't really changed that much in, 100 years almost, other than a few, lines, 3-point lines, this and that. But for the most part, especially in the last 50, 60 years, it's the same rules, but there's obviously technology, what we know about strength training, and all these advanced statistics with computers. And now the 3-point shot is a lot more, way more utilized than it ever was. But getting more back to the point, with these kids see all that. And I think with the way you have all these social medias, like we plug all our social medias. We try and any company, any podcast, they try and spread their reach as far as they can. And that's because everyone's on social media. These kids see NBA clips on TikTok. They see their Ball is Life and all these other people not even in the NBA these days, but doing cool stuff that they want to emulate. I even, growing up out there, wanted to be like the next Steve Nash. I was trying to do behind the back passes, and I know that when we first started playing, that was my signature thing, was unnecessary behind the back passes. I don't do it anymore, really. I don't think in the past, a couple I'll slip in there every once and again, but I don't really do it too much anymore. But that's besides the fact. More to the point, I think these kids these days try and run before they can walk. They don't get the fundamentals down to where they want to start jacking up 3-pointers. And it's almost, like you were saying, or even earlier, I think we're almost starting to see that in the college game, where they're pulling up from three. Even in college, they've pulled the 3-point line back in our lifetime. It used to be right up at the high school level, then a little bit back, and I think it's even further back again. Could be wrong, but either way, in any case, they're taking the long shots, they're taking the threes. They're not. People will say the college game has never changed, and maybe that's true to some extent with the defensive schemes, playing a lot more zone with the offensive sets and this and that. But at the end of the day, you do see it where more shots are being thrown up, more 3-pointers, and it's just real. I think, like, going back to just to wrap it all up, I think kids are trying to run before they can walk, and having them buy in and do those fundamental things is tough. And we've really seen that. And throughout the journey, was you mentioned going to the championship game in the first season. Last thing I wanted to ask you about right now in coaching, because we'll talk more about it, but what was probably maybe your favorite memory or the most memorable moment of your coaching career so far?
There's two that I have right off the top of my head. I think we were about a year in, and we were coaching a summer team. And summer's always tough because families are traveling, kids are doing camps, and it's just tougher to really have people there because, no fault to their own. They're trying to enjoy their summer and their time off from school.
Of course.
And we had a group, I think we started maybe with 8 or 9, if that. And then one of them didn't show. Then another came for like a game or two, then left. And we ended up only having 6 guys. And that might have been the best team that we ever had because at that point, it's them, right? It's all on them. There's no subs. There's no time to, really catch a breather. There's no other guy who can come in to take care of one specific guy who might be a little bit bigger or whatnot. It was everybody had to fight and play within their role. And that was my favorite summer or favorite team that we ever coached, because we had guys like Aaron stepping up into roles that, at the beginning when he started playing with us, he was a little bit limited, but he started to gain confidence as the seasons went along, and he played perfectly within his role. He took his shots when he needed to. He played aggressive defense. He was active. He went after the ball.
He was a rebounding machine.
And then our other guys took the next step that we needed. Like Brooke and Bryce started to get more aggressive, making smarter plays. Jared was really key, handling the ball, getting the team set up and getting action moving and talking with each other on the floor. So that was my, favorite overall memory of a season that we had. And we ended up winning that Valleywide Championship on the Suns floor. So that was even more special, where we lost on the practice floor and then we won on the main floor. And then my other probably main moment that I'll remember is it was the season right after we came back from COVID, which was November of 2020. It was a brand new unit that we brought in. We had a couple guys come over from Ahwatukee to join us who had played with each other, and then some other free agents that we had put together from Tempe. But they hit it off within the first 2-3 games and really, really found a camaraderie together. And we had a game at Tempe. You can find it on my pinned comment on my Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Where the game was tied and the other team had a chance to go for the win. And they slow played it. Our guys played perfect defense, transition, made them take a tough outside shot. And our one guy got the ball off the backboard, took about 2 dribbles through the corner and heaved up an underhand 3/4 court shot that he made. Never seen it before. Absolutely crazy. And everybody went nuts. And of course, this is at the time where COVID's still kind of going along. So I'm over there wearing a mask. The kids aren't. But I just had to get in there and celebrate with them because it was so crazy. It was nothing like I had ever seen before.
It was stunning, right? It took the air, like nobody could believe that it just happened. You can even see in the video the kid on the other team is just in utter disbelief at what he just saw. I think I share in some of those memories. I didn't realize that was November 2020. And that you're right, that was our last team, right?
Yep. Yep, that was the last time before you moved to what is it? BFN? BFE?
BFN works, I think. I wanted to bring this up before it becomes a controversy, like later on down the line, because of course we are Valley Sports Plug. I'm sorry to do this on Past the Outlet. This sounds like a heat check podcast topic, but just to get it out of the way, I do live in Santan Valley, which is southeast of the valley. I have come to grips with the fact that I don't live in the valley. So I hope that everybody is okay with me still commenting on the valley and being part of the Valley Sports Plug while not currently residing within the borders of what is naturally considered the
No,
what
it
do
still
you think?
counts. It still counts.
I'll take it.
Hey,
I hope you forgive me.
you could have a whole other conversations about the economy and where the growth of Arizona is going. So people have to move to Santan Valley because of the prices of homes. But I'm not a financial advisor, so we're not going to get into that. But that's
This
part
is
of the
not
valley.
financial advice. Exactly.
That's
And
absolutely part of the valley.
I think you give it 20 years, the map is going to look a little bit different. And I'm campaigning for Queen Creek and Maricopa County to bring in Santan Valley. Just bring us in. We don't want to be in Pinal County anymore. Nobody wants to. Just that's a whole nother topic we won't get into. But Mike, we're coming up pretty close to the hour mark, and I know we had a couple other topics we wanted to hit, but I did just want to round this out a little bit. Of course, we barely scratched the surface with your wealth of basketball knowledge, your whole journey, everything you've experienced. But that's great because that means that these people watching right now and back on the replay, they're gonna have to keep coming back so they can get the full scoop. And I also think that it's possible. I just in this conscious stream of thought, I think we could possibly convince Bryce and Brooke to come on sometime and talk about their experience, having us be their coaches, and maybe even just talking about their growth, if we were beneficial to that, or if we were just detrimental to that. Even I don't know. I'd be curious to know. But last question I wanted to ask you. Well, maybe two. Maybe I could squeeze in two real quick. But one specifically about you as a player. Do you have because you do play in some adult leagues in the recent past and coming up here? Actually, we got another one starting together. Do you have like a game time or a game day routine?
A little bit, nothing too like crazy. Like I'm not going in and having to, put on my deodorant a certain amount of swipes before I put my jersey on or anything like that. My game day routine is pretty much I get out there, I have my pick of shoes that I'm going for that day, trying to put my fit together to look a little bit nice out there on the floor, have some flair. And then as soon as I get out there, get my stuff on, and I have to stretch. I'm at the point where if I don't stretch, I'm gonna hurt myself. So calf raises, leg pulls, whatever you name it, get some leg swings in there as well before I step on the floor. That's my go-to ritual that I have every time I play now, because I know I'm not that old, but we're getting up there. So gotta stay limber before I step on the floor.
Definitely. I see you doing those stretches, and it's actually, I love it because it reminds me like, yeah, I do need to do some stretches, which I honestly don't do enough, but no, it's awesome. And I like that quick answer there. So I can ask you one more. Who are you watching and liking right now in the NBA? What player do you like watching or would be your favorite right now? And I do want to I want to put the caveat, not Suns player. What? Okay. Not Suns player.
Good, because I don't want to be a homer and just say Devin Booker, because
I'll give you the out. If you can't pick a Suns player, like
I watch him all the time. I love watching him.
Right. But we all love Book.
The new blood in the league has been really, really exciting. Guys like Ja Morant, Luka Doncic, Trae Young. I'm really a big fan of Trae Young. But the one guy that I still really enjoy to watch his game, and not as much his team, more so his game, is Klay Thompson.
Oh, okay.
I still enjoy watching what he brings to the table. A journeyman guy at this point, one of the best shooters in NBA history, has gone through injury, trials and tribulations of his own. So it's been very interesting to see him come back and the transition of the player that he is. He still has some leaping ability and whatnot, but the tactician of the shooter that he is really something that I really enjoy, because he's not a ball dominant player like Steph Curry. He's not really going for pull up off the dribbles. He's more of a curl off the screen, come through the lane, fight for positioning, and maybe one or two dribbles to get up to his shot. I think one of my favorite all-time moments of his was when he scored like 60 points off of like maybe like 8 dribbles or something, 10
I
dribbles.
was just thinking of that. Yeah, incredible.
Talk about somebody who is absolutely dialed in with his mechanics and the way that he gets to his spot and is just automatic the way that he fires off things. I remember when the Suns drafted Devin Booker, they had put together, or somebody on YouTube had put together a little clip package of his time at Kentucky, and they had used the Logic song. I think it was, oh my goodness, it was one of his old mixtape ones. The
And you sent me that the day we drafted Devin Booker, right?
And I sent it to you, and I said, the next Klay Thompson, right?
Yep.
And that always stuck with me, because obviously Devin Booker is not the next Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's going to end up being a Hall of Famer, hopefully like Devin Booker, but they are different players. But you can see similarities within the way that they attack the ball and the way that they shoot the ball. They're absolutely all about mechanics, the way that they get their work in beforehand. So when it comes to game time, it's just so second nature when they get that ball and they're into their shooting pocket and letting it fly right away. So I still like to watch what Klay does, and it's definitely a heartwarming story from where he came from his 2 ACL injuries and now is back and is a champion again. Do I like that the Warriors won another championship? Hell no.
Hell no.
But that's one thing. I'll respect greatness, and I'll give you the just desserts when I see it. So 100%. He's still one of my favorite guys to watch. And the last thing I could say about that is I also like to watch him because my grandma at one time said that I looked like him. And I said, Grandma, are you sure I look like him? And then Big Dawes TV on YouTube, I cannot tell you how often I have people tell me that I look like him. It has been over 200 times in my life that random ass people will come up to me and be like, hey, are you Big Dawes? And I'm like, no, I don't look like him. But Big Dawes is the guy who was able to smuggle himself onto the Warriors floor because he looks like Klay Thompson.
So perfect.
So it's all a transition right there.
Let me ask you then, Mike, what is the bar? How many subscribers would Valley Sports Plug have to get for you to try and get into Oracle Arena dressed as Klay Thompson?
I feel like I don't look that as good, as close as Big Dawes does to Klay Thompson.
I don't know.
How many will it take?
Yeah, how many would it take?
100,000.
100,000? All right. So if anyone, if in 3 to 5 years or whatever, we have no outlook for this, if at any point in history or time of Valley Sports Plug, if YouTube gets to 100,000 subscribers, Mike will go down to San Francisco and try and get into Oracle as Klay Thompson. Hopefully this happens while Klay Thompson is still on the Warriors, because it would be awkward if like it is in like 5 years and Klay is maybe like not with the Warriors, but I don't see him playing for any other team, honestly.
Hey, maybe it's in the future where they're doing like a celebration night, like 10 years from the first championship, and he's no longer playing. And then
he's the assistant coach or something.
I can smuggle myself in first and be like, yeah, I'm here for ring ceremony night, the celebration.
Was Big Dawes wearing a Klay Thompson jersey?
He was.
Dude, so come on. What player is wearing their own jersey?
I know. It's pretty bad. Like, the people who are outside Oracle Arena being like, oh, it's Klay Thompson. He's just chopping it up with the people. It's like, nobody does that. There's no athletes that go outside of their stadium and just kick it. They get into the parking garage and they are locked in.
It's like, if you think it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true.
Exactly.
Damn. Well, Mike, I'm having so much fun. This is past the outlet. This is, I don't want to label it as a podcast because we're going to do it in kind of this live stream format and then have it ready for you guys back on the replay. And I think we're going to even have it on Spotify, the audio only version. If you want to listen to it, I'll be on the Valley Sports Plug. It's probably going to be under the Heat Check podcast, but that is where all the Valley Sports Plug product is going to go for now as we grow and kind of find our footing and everything. But I'm really excited for this because we got to know a little bit about Mike today, and on the next episode we'll dive into my journey a little bit. But for this last 20-30 minutes or whatever we end up running, we do have a few more spots for you and segments, if you will, that I think we're going to try have reoccurring and see how you like it. And so let us know. Drop a comment below. You can always be a part of the conversation on all of our podcasts, the Valley Sports Plug page on Facebook and Twitter. Always, we want you to comment and then be a part of it, because even here on the live streams, if you're dropping in tidbits, something we might not know. Me and Mike were talking about this when we were at the red and white practice this weekend. We're just a couple of fans, really, at the end of the day, when it comes to especially the Heat Check podcast. And even with this podcast, we're fans of the game. We're fans of basketball. I know I think I can speak for Mike in saying we just love basketball. Like I said earlier, ball is life. And, sports is a big part of both of our lives overall. So I can't emphasize that enough. But enough of the plugs, enough of the BS. Mike, what are we calling this one? It's similar. Have you guys heard of the Monday morning quarterback for football? It's kind of going to be like that. We're calling it the outlet point guard.
Yeah. So this is going to be a segment where we break down the game a little bit, from, past, present, college level, pro level, just diving into some plays, probably a specific play each time that caught our eye, and just look to kind of dissect what we're seeing on the floor and maybe get the conversation going with some of you other fans out there. But I thought it was only right for our first one to be Mr. Devin Booker. So Chris, if you want to go ahead and pull that up.
Perfect. Let's do it.
This is a play from January 16th, 2022. So it was this past season. I think the Suns ended up winning this game like 135-109. Obviously, the Pistons are still in rebuilding. They drafted Cade Cunningham first overall last year and have started to make some transitional pieces, like bringing in Marvin Bagley, who selfishly I hope can turn it around for his career, because I know he's an Arizona guy, went to Corona del Sol. So this one is just a simple little play from Devin Booker, which we've seen plenty of times, but we'll go ahead and play it and then break it down here. So it's going to be real quick. Make sure you're paying attention. So they're pushing on the outlet. Here comes Book trying to slow the pace, waits for his big man, Bismack Biyombo, slows, dribbles right at the top of the key, creates separation, and then hits your jumper. Let's run it back real quick. Is it choppy on your end, Chris?
Yeah, it was a little choppy on my end. I don't know if that's going to be the same for the stream. I will, in complete candor, I didn't watch this clip beforehand, so this is also going to be kind of my raw reaction to everything. Is this up on YouTube that you're pulling this up on?
Yeah.
There we go. So it's back to he's in the paint. We can kind of take it frame by frame.
The problem with this is what happened last time when you tried to pull up that DA play.
It was kind of doing the same thing. Yeah, I think me personally, well, it's showing the other end. That's going a little further. Bridges in the corner.
Yeah, it's not loading on my end, Chris. It's just stuck pretty much.
That's okay. That's fine. We'll work on that. We'll get that.
Hear me?
You're a little choppy. Get that out of here.
That's tough.
All right. Yeah. That's okay though.
So basically, I don't know, maybe post-production we could throw it in there or whatnot. But this play was basically Devin Booker bringing the ball up kind of in transition and slow playing it. And my favorite part about it was the patience that he showed. he waited for his bigs to, fall down the floor with him. Was patient, let Bismarck Biombo slip through, and then really focused in on that slow dribble to see if that double was coming over from the top of the key. And then he created that small separation without extending his elbow and trusted his jumper right there. So those are just such simple plays that a lot of people don't really like to think much of, because the NBA and Sports Center is all about your highlights, your crazy windmill jams or your crazy lobs, your really deep 3-pointers. But that's the part of the game that is so foundational for the success of teams, right? Having a guy who can trust his mid-range jumper, having a guy who can feel where the defense is coming from, takes his time, slows it down, sees that double up top isn't there, so he understands and trusts his skills that he's going to be able to create that separation to pull that 18-foot jumper. So hopefully it'll work in the future. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it now, Chris, because I feel like anytime we run video through this, it's going to be choppy.
Well, yeah, that could be. And I think, because are you on your personal laptop or your work laptop?
I'm on my PC.
Oh, on your PC. Okay. Because I think, I don't know. I don't think it's an internet thing. I think it's got to be a processing thing. Because I know I'm on. I was gonna say I'm on a really pretty old It's a hand-me-down laptop. Really no excuse. I didn't have much of a use for having a high-quality computer until now. So should get on it, and I think I will. I'll try and get something better that can have the capacity to do both. But yeah, for now, we'll play that by ear. But within that clip specifically, you did a good job of breaking it down. But the one thing I would say that I saw as devil's advocate was that he did have, it looked like, potentially two other options in Jay Crowder in the very corner and Mikal Bridges up top. But I think you were saying there that he trusted himself to have that spacing once he got the defender on his hip and his back to pull that jumper. And that's what I love about Devin Booker, is because he's built that trust with his teammates and with the fan base where we're okay with that shot because he's proven that he can make it more often than he doesn't. So I don't have a problem with that look at all.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Especially as he started to get deeper towards the free throw line and the defense collapsed, that guy over on the other side of the free throw line started to leak in more towards him. So Cam Payne was open and on that top 3-point line over on the left side. But it depends on how you swing that ball too, right? If that ball gets over to Cam Payne, how quick is that defender stepping out? Is it only taking him one step to get there to contest properly? But that can also start the transition, right? You swing it over to Cam Payne, the defense leaks up. Maybe that guy down on the bottom who's on Jay Crowder thinks, oh, I got to step up because my guy is pressing in too much on Booker. So I got to step up to help. And then Cam Payne swings to Jay Crowder in the corner. So those are so many different looks that you can get from that. And it's the same thing as Bismack Biyombo dives down. Devin Booker's probably trying to see if he can dump within the lane, but then you see Isaiah Stewart fall over to cover him, and Mikal Bridges is already blanketed by that one other guy in the corner who can basically step over to Bismack Biyombo as well. So your only other option is to swing out or try and create space and take your shot there. So I'll take that any day of the week. Devin Booker is the one who's going to get us over the hump anyways. So tough shots like that, it's not as crazy as some of the things that we've seen from him, but just a little bit of separation can, create a successful shot.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we pay him the big bucks. And he is the highest paid player on the team, is because we have to rely on him to make those shots. And obviously the organization trusts him to make those shots and take those shots. So I want to keep seeing that. I want to see him keep growing. He's still a young guy. I think he's 25
years old.
Man, only so much more room for growth. I mean, I'm 28, going to be 29 in a couple months, and I think I'm just now starting to hit the best years of my game. And I'm hoping that in the next couple of years, I can only continue to grow, and we'll dive more into that. But I'd love to see that from Devin Booker so much, and I think it's inevitable. He has the work ethic, he has the drive, and the fact that he's so comfortable and so confident already, man. The Suns are. If anyone had any doubts in what the Suns were doing, just got to be grateful that they at least were smart enough to sign Devin Booker long term and keep him happy, keep him the face of the franchise. Because once we get the technology caught up, once we get this all sorted out, the outlet point guard is going to be something where we probably see a lot of Devin Booker. We're going to do a lot of Suns plays. I think we're going to probably try and break down all levels. We might look at some college plays, some youth sports plays, but I don't want to scrap it all together because I think there's some potential there. And it really will help us, expand and explain our perspective as basketball aficionados, if you will. So, to use some big vocab tonight. But rounding it out, do you think we got the Reddit reacts on tap and ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go if you are. Where do you want to start with? Do you want to start with basketball? You want to start with Suns or NBA?
I think we should go just Suns, because I think to let the cat out of the bag early, there was some news breaking late this afternoon. We're recording this on August 8th, 2022. I'm not in the past today. It's 2022. Kevin Durant is kind of doubling down on his trade request, trade demand, as Adam Silver might put it, and kind of said that it's like the disgruntled girlfriend. It's like it's me or the boys. And so Kevin Durant is saying it's me or Steve Nash and Sean Marks. So he's given them an ultimatum, making them choose. And I think even Mike has it pulled up here. Is that the owner?
I think so. Joe Tsai?
Yeah, the owner, Joe Tsai. I think he's the owner. He said maybe majority owner. He said our front office and coaching staff have my support. We will make decisions in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets. So
doubling down, man. They're doubling down.
And this is what's hot right now on the Suns Reddit.
I'm just surprised that this is the way that he's going about it. If there's no way that it can really be just he had big issues with Steve Nash. I mean, why would that be the case? Is it a factor of he doesn't think that he's a good enough leader, or he doesn't like his style? I mean, at the same time, Steve Nash is still trying to find his own footing as a coach. I mean, he did his little assistant work with the Golden State Warriors, but that wasn't in a real assistant level, being at the games, on the sideline, whatnot. That was just, practice work. So yeah. Steve Nash is still trying to figure out what kind of coach he's going to be. So I could understand where it'd be tough, where KD has been in the league for so long and he probably can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and he doesn't have that many more years left to really make a push. But who else are you going to bring in other than Steve Nash? So I think this was only a matter of time. Like we were saying, that they went through the phases of trying to get yourself out of town, right? You ask for a trade, and then you say, okay, well, this is where I want to go. And weeks have gone by now since KD has come out and said Phoenix is his number one priority or number one destination. And deals couldn't get done. There weren't enough enticing offers on the table. And now the next step was basically I thought was going to be to say, okay, well, I'm not playing until you trade me. So he's taking it in a different direction, where basically saying, okay, I'll be here, but you got to get rid of the coach, which I think is still a toxic environment to be in. At this point, Kevin Durant needs to get out of town, and Brooklyn needs to figure out any type of way to get him out. And there's people
That's
waiting
the
on
RDJ
Flex.
Mean.
I think his podcast is Coast to Coast Podcast. Flex from Jersey, another kind of Suns insider guy who will call on to 98.7 after every Suns game, I think, and kind of give his tidbits on what he saw during the games. And he's really started to get more tapped in with the team and, the higher ups, and knows his stuff, it seems like. So, yeah, I'm waiting too. But And then it looks like Burns and Gambo posted this one about KD.
Soon.
I'm telling
What
you,
is-
bro. That's what I was saying the last time. It's gonna happen. This is just a weird next step for him. If you're trying to get out of town, you don't put an ultimatum on the coach or not. I just thought that you would say, "Hey, I'm not playing until you trade me.
And
So you can waste your money if you want, or I won't
yeah.
get paid, but I'm not going to play." Like it's similar to what Ben Simmons did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and earlier today I was talking to my brother Matt. He's going to be joining us hopefully in the next roundtable. You'll be seeing him more and more. But we were talking and just pontificating or wondering is KD really going to like pull this like poison pill, if you will, and just put him in this tough position where basically saying I am not going to play for you. Like if you don't trade me, I'm just not going to show up. And that's almost when you first started talking there, it almost reminded me of the Anthony Davis situation where with New Orleans, where they never outright came out and said that Anthony Davis was refused to play, but they kind of hid behind his injuries, hid behind a bad season where they were like, "Oh, we're resting him, saving him, blah 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 blah." And even with the flex stuff, I saw someone point out that that was kind of the news coming out around the same time during the Anthony Davis saga, where talks have broken down between the Pelicans and the Lakers. A deal's probably not going to happen. Both sides are too far apart. Anthony Davis is not going to go to the Lakers. And then 2 seconds later, the trade happens. And I think I think people know more than I'm so sorry. After this show, I'm going to get rid of all of my cats and they're not going to be meowing and batting around toys in the background and it's not going to be a problem. Anyway, just getting back on track. You've seen, I don't know whether it's trolling or not, you've seen Mikal Bridges posting crying emojis and kind of guys hinting here and there that they might be on their way out. Jay Crowder saying he's ready for a new change. So it leads me to believe that the sides are closer to a deal than we think. I think we're looking at Bridges and Jay Crowder getting out of here, a bunch of draft picks, some money. And I think a lot of the hangup is that the Suns don't want to get rid of Cam J and Bridges, but I think the Nets really want Cam J and Bridges. Deal's going to get done one way or another. It seems like Kevin Durant is going to force his way, and he has that prowess because he might be the best player in basketball right now. Might be. I know a lot of people, Davey would disagree with me. I think he thinks Giannis is the best right now, but I honestly think Kevin Durant has a much broader skill set than Giannis does. And so within that, he's even said, I think on the Old Man in the Three, JJ Redick's podcast, he said that he learned later on in his Oklahoma City career that he's not afraid to go to the front office, and he learned that he can dictate how a team is run because he is that caliber of player and he knows it. You can call it arrogance if you will, but at the end of the day, he's right. You know what I'm saying? Do you agree with that?
That KD's right to one out?
Not that he's right to one out, but that he's right that he can dictate his future in the NBA and have more say in the front office than anyone else would.
Yeah. I mean, he's that high prolific of a athlete within the league and has the notoriety of a player that can probably do it. Similar to the way that LeBron James got his way out, Well, no, I think LeBron signed with the Lakers. Everywhere he went, he was free agent. So
yeah.
Besides that, yeah, I mean, the last thing you want to deal with is disgruntled players who, obviously something went wrong with KD and Kyrie, because as soon as Kyrie said he's coming back, KD said, nope, okay, well, you didn't want to go, so I'm out. There's a lot of different things that are at play here, but he's definitely one of those top 5 guys in the league where he can make enough of a stink that I feel like he can get to where he wants to go. It's how many times have we seen really, really high profile players request to be traded to a specific place and it just ends up happening somehow miraculously.
Mm-hmm.
It's far and few between that it doesn't happen. But now it's just who's going to bite the bullet first, right? Like you said, the Suns don't want to give up Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. You'd rather just give up one of those pieces because then you can still kind of keep that young core and not have to fill with random free agents. That's the other problem with this. What other pieces are going to have to be involved, especially now that we're getting down towards the end of free agency. I know there's been some exciting new developments, I guess you could say, but it depends on how excited you're about it. Matt hit me up about how the Pistons are going to buy out Kemba. I think that would be an option that the Suns could look at the backup point guard position. He's getting up there, but it's also more firepower that you can give off the bench. I think I trust his consistency a little bit more than Cam Payne at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But if you have to give up 3 or 4 guys in order to get one guy back in a Kevin Durant, who else are you going to fill in? Because everybody's gone now. Everybody has really filled out. I've heard things that, like, if Kevin Durant finds himself here, then maybe the Suns get LaMarcus Aldridge because LaMarcus wants to go with him. But there's just not enough true backup pieces, I feel, that would come into the fold if we have to mortgage the farm, which we don't want to. And that's more than likely why we haven't seen a deal get done. The Suns are holding on for dear life to try and find any way that they can keep Mikal Bridges. And I would do the exact same thing too. Because
you have
going
to.
back to go you I don't know if you have to. He's such a defensive anchor. Obviously,
that's what I'm saying.
Want
yeah.
him to. But if you're going after Kevin Durant, it's win now mode anyways. It's not win in 2-3 years. It's you got to win right now because Chris Paul's 37 and he's, his limitations with his injuries are showing at this point. So they're just trying everything in their might to hold the line. And it might work out a little bit more in the Suns' favor, especially as more things like this start to happen. He's asking, hey, you trade Steve Nash or get me the hell out of here. So the owner already came out and said, we're not firing anybody. So that's just one more point for us, I guess.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think I just wanted to clarify there. I don't think I'm not saying you have to keep Mikal Bridges. You have to try and keep Mikal Bridges. And
absolutely.
That's been a big point in the free agency is we're looking for a wing that can shoot, which we already have in Cam Johnson. And Davey made a great point when we had our last Heat Check podcast live is that you can't expect Cam Johnson to grow anymore because he's already an older player, and that's why we drafted him. We've even talked about that in the past on those other podcasts. Is that's why we brought him in is because he was an older player with that experience and that pedigree. But in any case, getting back to the point, I think James Jones hasn't given us any reason to not trust him. And I think it's understandable for him to play hardball. No games are being played yet. The rosters aren't finalized as far as I know. And there's still time for all this to go down. And so every little piece, every little block, it becomes a little bit more likely that a deal gets done, especially when you hear these stories of Kevin Durant doubling down, saying that it's him or me, the ultimatum, and the owner saying, well, it's them. That's him saying, well, I'm choosing a side, right? So they might have to cut their losses at the end of the day. And there's a broader discussion that we might have at another time of if that's fair, if these players should be held to their contracts, what they sign. Now, there's a player argument for, they could be sold a false bill of goods. They could have all the smoke blown up their ass about the vision for the team and then not deliver, especially when you consider a brand new coach like Steve Nash. He didn't have any coaching experience going into this gig, as far as I know, and Sean Marks. And so I can see it both ways. I see the player perspective. I see the organization's perspective. And like I said, that's a much broader conversation that could be had. But I'm really excited, Mike, to dive into all of these topics and everything that we've been kind of introducing here in this episode. This is Past the Outlet. This is our very first episode. Earlier on, we heard a little bit about Mike's journey. The broad conversation was a lot about Michael Benjamin. And in episode 2, you'll learn a bit about me, Chris Patrick, and my journey. Not as sexy as Mike's, but I think I'll have some tidbits in there nonetheless. I just wanted to give you the floor, Mike, before we sign off. Do you want to just in wrapping this up? I want to kind of set the precedent or set the expectation for what this podcast is going to be, what to expect in the future and what we hope to accomplish with Past the Outlet.
Absolutely. I mean, our love for basketball, I would say, is almost unmatched. It's something that is an absolute passion of mine. It is now and forever. I promise you that. No matter how frustrated I can get at my favorite team or on the floor when I'm playing, it's just something that's a part of me, and I know is a part of you, Chris. And there's just so many different facets to talk about, which is, for the Heat Check podcast, where we will talk about different outlets for all of our Arizona sports teams, from the Diamondbacks to the Cardinals to the Suns to the Coyotes, and more centralized with what's going on with Valley Sports. We wanted to bring Past the Outlet to really dive into the culture of basketball, whether that be our own experiences in life through playing the game, our coaching experiences, the different type of people and characters we've met along the way, our experiences with the Phoenix Suns, going to games, being on the floor, working for them, youth sports culture. And that's going to be I think this is a great outlet for that as well, because we want to get you guys involved, for those who love the game and are passionate the same way that we are, and bring you into the conversation. We're going to have, people from some of our leading youth sports organizations join us and talk about the culture of youth sports and what's going on in the nonprofit world. We'll talk to some people who are still involved with the Suns organization and all the awesome things that are going on with the team. We'll talk to some of our friends who come to runs with us and talk about their perspective, and other people, who are more focused within college sports, because we don't know everything, but we know a lot of people who do have great knowledge, and we want to bring it to you guys. So once again, this is Past the Outlet podcast, a Valley Sports Plug production. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AZ_VSP to join the conversation. You can stream all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube page at Valley Sports Plug. Chris, I thought this was a great start. Obviously, we're still new into this game. We're getting our feet a little bit wetter every single time. Technical difficulties are just a part of the game, but overcoming it is what it's all about. And I think we did that today. So I appreciate you, man. And I'll let you 100%. Send us off.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I think you said it better than I could have. And so I think that's a great spot for us to head out on. I'm just really excited. You came up, like I said, all credit to Mike Benjamin coming up with this idea, Past the Outlet. I'm so excited. We're going to talk so much about basketball. Mike and I were there through the dog days of the Suns, from the heights of the Nash era to the lows of the Bledsoe era to back in the heights of the Booker era. We're ready to talk about all of that, all things Suns, all things youth sports, all things adult league basketball, really anything that comes up that's basketball related. I'm sure Mike's going to talk about some shoes, some shoe releases, and you guys make sure to give us those ideas down in the comments. Anything you want to hear about that's basketball related, we want to bring it to you and share it with you. And again, just one more time, just real excited. So we're going to sign off now. This is Past the Outlet. I'm Chris Patrick from Michael Benjamin. We'll see you next time.
Peace.